Welcome to the Hello Sunday podcast with me, Nikki Hayden. This is the podcast that discusses everything self-development, spirituality and sobriety. And it wouldn't be me without a little sprinkling of humour. Whether you are just starting out on your journey of self-development or have been exploring these topics for years, are completely alcohol-free or just curious about living a more sober lifestyle, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'll be exploring topics in both solo episodes and with some amazing guest experts. So if you like what you hear, then please subscribe, rate and review. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hello Sunday. I hope you've all had a great week. I hope that you are well and truly back into the thick of it now. Following the Christmas break, it's been a bit of a baptism of fire for me, not gonna lie. Coming back to the UK when everybody else has been back at work for a couple of weeks is definitely something that I've not done before, and you don't get that chance to kind of ease back in after Christmas like you do when you start on the 2nd or 3rd of Jan. So, first world problems, as I said last week, but it definitely has been a busy week, put it that way. It's been super busy and I've really enjoyed it. I've loved it. I can't lie. Getting back into work, into fitness. I know I said last week that I was struggling with a bit of overwhelm. Still the case, but I think, you just have to kind of do what you can do. And I've certainly just been trying to hit what I can this week in terms of fitness goals, work goals, getting everything sorted at home and back into the swing of things and the routine following the Christmas break and our holiday. And I feel like I'm getting there now. I do feel like I'm kind of over that kind of initial hump. Although the weather, oh gosh, if you're in the UK, the weather's just been so stormy and so windy and so it just doesn't make for great kind of like outdoor pursuits and walking and stuff like that. So bring on the spring. I'm already ready for it. I think, post Christmas, we all just want to go straight into the nice weather, don't we, in the summer? But anyway, I've got a new microphone, so I'm hoping the sound's a bit better this week. It's not been awful, but don't know, it's just been a little bit muffled. And whilst I'm not, about the kind of the studio setup just yet, keep liking and reviewing and we'll get there. But at the minute, it is still just a home setup. And with that, I've got a new microphone. So I'm welcoming all feedback, welcoming all comments about the sound. I will listen back and hopefully give it a bit of a tweak, but hopefully it's a little bit crisper. So thank you, Sophie Waddington, for the recommendation. So this week I have had two really interesting conversations at opposite ends of the spectrum about what has prompted the thoughts for the topic that we're going to talk about this week. And that is protecting your energy. Now, protecting your energy is something that comes up quite a lot on social media. It can be quite toxic in terms of it can sometimes, or people can sometimes refer to it in terms of like cutting people out of your life and getting rid of negative energy. And don't get me wrong, there are occasions and times and instances where that might be the case and you might need to do that. However, I don't necessarily think that we should always attack it from a place of if you've had a negative or bad experience with somebody, or there is, something going on in your life that's maybe impacting you, that you need to cut it off and, be that extreme. I think there's definitely a kind of a spectrum of things that we can do and a spectrum of negative to positive that we need to look at when we're referring to people in our lives and assessing the impact that they're having and essentially protecting our energy. So one of the conversations that I had this week, well, I'll just kind of give you a bit of background. So I'd obviously come back from holiday and gone basically straight back into the working week. I was feeling very overwhelmed, very tired. I'd picked up a bit of a bug on the plane, so wasn't feeling 100%. And by the time I got to Saturday, I'm not going to lie, by the time I got to Friday, I was definitely craving some downtime and just a bit of a break from kind of the routine and work and fitness and all that sort of stuff. And it got to Saturday afternoon and I got a call from my sister-in-law. Now, my sister-in-law is somebody that pre-kids, so pre my nephews, we would speak most days, we would voice note, text, etc., etc. And then kind of life, gets in the way. We're still super close, but I don't really get calls from her all that often. So, yeah, I was really intrigued, answered the phone. Anyway, an hour and 10 minutes later, and I came off that phone call so full of enthusiasm and excitement and absolutely buzzing with energy that I can't even tell you. I was so fired up, and I even texted her afterwards saying, you have absolutely lit a fire inside me. And the conversation was all about her career and her setting up in a business on her own, and there was ideas being bounced back and forth, and she wanted my opinion and my input, and she was telling me her ideas, and it just lit a fire inside of me for my own business and the things that I want to pursue with my own career. And it honestly just made me feel incredible. And we were going out for food that evening, and I got off the phone call and I was like so ready to go out and socialise, and yeah, it was great. On the other end of the scale, I've had a really good friend of mine recently having some issues with a neighbour of hers, and this neighbour has recently had a marriage breakdown and is getting very, let's say, attached to my friend, dumping all of her issues onto her regularly, infringing on quite a lot of their family time as well, wanting things done by my friend's husband. It's just a lot. And I think she feels very kind of drained by this person, and very, I guess it's quite difficult when the person lives next door to avoid them. So she's feeling quite trapped, and we've been discussing ways that she can maybe deal with this and strategies that she can put in place to maybe make sure that there's some boundaries, and we'll come on to that in a moment. So, what is energy? The best way that I can describe my experiences of energy is exactly what I've just sort of said, really. So, it's the exchange between two people, or the exchange between yourself and a group of people, that leaves you either feeling pumped up, buzzed, fire in your belly, ready to go, or it can leave you physically, emotionally, mentally drained. You can either have an amazing energy exchange, or you can feel like your energy is being pulled on and drained, and it's a very one-way interaction. And this doesn't have to be face-to-face. You could have energy exchanges via text. It could be voice note. It could be email. I know I've got, or not so much now actually in my own business, but certainly did have when I was agency side and kind of contractually bound to working with certain clients. I had certain clients that I'd get emails from, and I'd be like, oh God. I mean, I had one that I used to come home and, at least once or twice a week, they'd reduce me to tears by their email exchanges, and they basically refused to get on the phone with me. So it doesn't have to be a in-person physical face-to-face exchange to drain your energy. It can be something as simple as a text message or a voice note. So when it comes to those energy exchanges, we have to be super aware and super careful about who is allowed access to our energy in the first instance, and whether the exchange that's happening is balanced. So whether you are having, sometimes you'll have friends, all of my close friends know that they can come to me with their problems or their issues or their challenges or something that they need advice on. And I'll be there for them because they've done it for me. I mean, I've been in an absolutely horrendous relationship in the past where for months and months and months, I was just needing advice and a shoulder to cry on for all the challenges and the stress that I was going through with it. And I'm pretty sure there was times during those exchanges with my friends that they were like, for fuck's sake, I wish you'd just leave him and get on with it. But nevertheless, they were there for me. And I think, you have to be aware that this isn't just about if somebody is negative or leaning on you, that you need to protect your energy and create boundaries, etc., etc. It has to be, like I say, on a spectrum, and it has to be on a case-by-case basis. But you will know if somebody is an energy drain or if somebody is the type of individual or the type of group of people that you need to essentially protect your energy from and create a little bit of a boundary with. So, what are some of the ways that you can do this? And what are the strategies, I guess, that in the processes that you can put in place to make sure that, especially this time of year when people can be a little bit more negative, can be, coming out of Christmas, that excited party season, loads of stuff to look forward to. And then some people come out of it and they're maybe a little bit unhealthier, they've put on weight, maybe they're in debt because they've put things on credit card to finance that period. And people can become a little bit more negative. They can become a little bit more, they have an ability to sometimes not see the positive side of what's happening and not have that gratitude and be grateful. And sometimes that can result in them kind of like dumping on you, especially if you are really close to them. So what are some of the things that we can do, and what are kind of like, what's my strategy and process? So first of all, I'd say it's really important to identify exactly how am I feeling. Is it that this person or this situation or this group of people is draining your energy consistently, or is it just a one-off? Is it just, one of your friends is having a bit of a rough time, they've dumped on you a couple of times, and you can see that it's not their natural personality, it's not the natural flow of your relationship? Or is this actually something that is becoming quite a burden? How are you actually feeling? Are you feeling like the situation is truly draining and you need to do something about it? Or is it just that, there's light at the end of the tunnel, you've just got to suck it up for a little bit? Because there will be those periods, there will be those times, there will be those interactions with friends, family, business associates, clients, peers, colleagues, where we know that it's just a case of, okay, I need to be a bit of an ear for them. But then there's also people that you meet that from day one do just drain your energy, and then maybe you do need to take action. Or it might be that somebody's situation has changed, like in the instance with my friend and her neighbour, and actually that situation is not going to change back anytime soon, and it's become the new normal, in which case she needs to start putting some stuff in place to combat that and to protect herself. So how are you feeling? Identify the feelings. Is it that you're drained? Is it that you're frustrated? Is this person making you angry? What are the actual emotions that you're feeling? What are the, at its very core, how is it making you feel? So that is the first step. And the second step, I would say, is to look at what are your triggers. Are your triggers... So I've got a friend who likes to send quite long, ranty text messages. The minute that I get one of those, I know I have to be in the right headspace to receive it and to deal with it and to answer that person. I've got clients that are quite direct, let's say, and sometimes if I'm not in the right headspace, if something's pissed me off, or if I'm tired, or if I'm hungry, I might not be able to deal with their directness in the way that I would if I was at my, peak. So what are your triggers? Are there certain instances that you get more triggered? Is it a particular person? Is it their style of communication? Is it when they text rather than call you, maybe? Or is it in a situation where you might be, quite an introvert at heart? So maybe you're getting to a point within social interactions where, after a couple of hours, you've had enough. What are your triggers? Because when you know your triggers, it's so much easier to be able to put things in place to protect yourself and protect your energy than it is if you don't know them. So, for instance, if you know that you're quite an introvert and you know that maybe after a couple of hours of social interaction, especially in certain scenarios, your social battery's quite drained and you feel very physically and energetically drained and needing to leave, maybe you can put in place a plan that you are able to exit that environment after that amount of time. Or maybe you can say to your friends, look, I'm going to drive because I know that I'm going to want to go home at this point. Or if it's a work thing, maybe you can just have a chat with the person that's running it, let them know that you're good to come, but actually you're going to make your own way there, or whatever it might be. So the triggers are really important, and identifying them rather than just coming away from interactions and being like, I don't understand why I'm feeling like this. I don't understand why I'm so drained. Try and understand exactly what it is about that situation. Is it that the text messages that you're getting are just negative, or is it somebody that's constantly voice noting you asking for your advice? Is it that you are getting very direct emails from a client who on the phone is perfectly pleasant and it's really triggering you and it's making you feel shitty? Could you maybe ask that person to communicate via phone calls, or email you and maybe ask, can we speak now, or can we set a time? So knowing your triggers allows you to really work around that and to understand, is this the person or the situation that's pissing you off, or is it actually the communication style? This is now the point where you want to be setting some boundaries. Now, when I say boundaries, you don't actually need to communicate these boundaries with anyone. I mean, you can do if you want to, but I will set personal boundaries in alignment with what I know triggers me to ensure that I'm not triggered very often, if at all. So, for instance, there are some people that I will absolutely not communicate with first thing in the morning. In fact, I won't communicate with many people first thing in the morning. I will always have my morning routine set out and things that I will do for myself before I communicate with anyone. Now, there are certain friends where it's part of our ritual that we do voice note each other in the morning. And that's fine because it's a really good energy exchange. We vibe off each other. The chat might not always be super positive, but it's the flow of the relationship. There's other people that I know, if I speak to first thing in the morning, it's normally one way. It's normally resolving their problems, giving advice. There's times when I've literally spent the first hour or hour and a half of my morning giving advice to other people and helping other people. And it's got to like 9:30 and I think, I've not done anything for myself yet. I've not done my workout or trained. I've not even done my morning routine. I've not done anything. And all I've done is give my energy. And already I'm drained. So at this point, once you've identified your triggers and you've understood exactly how you're feeling and why you're feeling that way and what it is that triggers you, you can look at the boundaries that you need to put in place that just going to help to limit that energy drain. So it might be that you don't talk to certain people at certain points of the day. It might be that before you speak to anybody or have any form of energy interaction or communication, that you need to exercise or meditate or journal or do your gratitude. It might be that you know that if certain people voice note you, you won't listen to it until after lunchtime because you immediately know that there's probably going to be something in there that is going to drain your energy or it's going to make you feel like you need to give. So there's certain things you can put in place in terms of boundaries. And like I say, you don't have to communicate this to anyone. If you want to, then you absolutely can. It might be that you just say to certain friends or certain colleagues or certain business associates, look, I'm not going to be responding during these hours, or this is not something that I will be able to deal with until this point. It might be that you have certain times of the day where you manage things or that you will respond. Or it might just be that you just shelve stuff, don't say anything to anyone. You under absolutely no obligation to get back to anybody in any set time frame, unless it is maybe potentially a business or work project and you've got a deadline. But you don't have to respond to text messages or voice notes or emails within a certain time frame. And if people put that expectation on you, then I would honestly reassess who those people are and what part they play in your life. So set the boundaries, look at who it is that's causing you to feel drained and what those triggers are, and think about workarounds that, if you have to have these people in your life and they are people that maybe you want in your life, but they just from time to time can be a bit draining, look at the whys and the hows and put in place plans and strategies to just create that little bit of a barrier and a boundary and make sure that you're in good energy yourself before you interact with them. Then I would say, don't play into the negativity. If you've got a particular friend or colleague or business associate or neighbour that is very negative, if you've got somebody that gossips a lot or talks about other people behind their back or just constantly talks about the same situation over and over. For instance, when I was going through that bad breakup or that bad relationship and it was, consistently the same situation, you need to make sure that you're not playing into that. Don't entertain it, because the minute that somebody who is an energy drain or somebody who is negative gets another person that is willing to feed into that negativity, they will just keep going. It's like, if you're in a situation where somebody is gossiping, which is a really, really low vibe way of communicating, it's just a low vibe activity. You don't want to be gossiping. Spend time with people that are discussing ideas, not people that are discussing other people. But if you're in that situation and maybe somebody's saying, oh God, have you seen what so-and-so's wearing today? Or did you hear what so-and-so said? Or, oh God, what do you think of their boyfriend or their partner? Flip the conversation and just completely change as if you haven't even heard it. So you can talk about, I don't know, anything other than, what you were watching on TV the night before, or the book that you've read recently, or something going on in the news. Or if you have got it in you, and I know for some people this makes them feel super uncomfortable, but you can even say something along the lines of, oh, I'm not really wanting to talk about that, or I'm not really engaging in gossip at the moment, or, oh, I've set myself a New Year's resolution to not talk about other people. And actually what that does is it stops the other person in their tracks, because it reflects back to them what they're doing. It actually names that behaviour and reflects back to them. So it takes quite a lot of balls to do that, but if you are, feeling like that is something that you're confident in doing, then that's definitely a great way to switch that around. So don't play into the negativity. If you're getting messages from a friend that are really negative, maybe just, acknowledge them and then flip the conversation into something more positive, or just maybe don't even reply at all. and actually knowing your triggers. If you are triggered by somebody when you're more tired or you're more hungry, or I know, for instance, this last week I've been quite tired because the wind's been really bad and it's been keeping me awake a lot more at night. I wouldn't have wanted to engage in a really heavy conversation with somebody, or even really be, talking about anything negative, because it would have got to me a lot more than when I'm really high vibe and I've slept well and I'm in, a great mood and great energy myself. So knowing your triggers helps you to understand how you can maybe deal with that at a better time. And then not playing into the negativity means that, you're not feeding it, you're not kind of allowing them to perpetuate that behaviour. For those of you that are regular listeners to the show, or maybe you know me personally, you won't have been able to get away without hearing me talk about Simprove. Simprove is a scientifically backed, water-based probiotic drink. You drink it daily and it has been scientifically proven to help with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, pain. It was actually a dietitian friend of mine that introduced it to me last year, and I honestly wouldn't be without it now. It's helped with my energy, with my bloating, it's helped with my immune system, and also things like my skin. The list is honestly endless. Now, I have got a code for you. So if you'd like to try Simprove, you can get 50%, that's a massive 50% off your first 3 month subscription by going on to simprove.com and putting in the code Nikki50. That's NIKKI50, or clicking the link in the show notes. Cleansing your space and cleansing your person. Now, this is a little bit more on the spiritual side, and I know not everyone's into this, but something like saging, or using sound, or using any kind of like high vibration. So you can use gongs, or you can use bowls, you can use even high vibe music, just to cleanse your space. So if you've had a negative interaction with somebody, or somebody's been in your physical space, or even just virtually, like I do this if I've had like a meeting or a call where it's not felt really, good, or if I've had an interaction with somebody over text that's left me feeling a bit like, ugh. I'll often like cleanse and sage. So that is something that you can do to literally cleanse your energy and create a fresh slate again as well, if you're into that. And if you're not, maybe give it a try. You never know. It's not going to do any harm, is it? So when we're talking about negative energy and energy drains, we're not just talking about people and conversations and interactions. We're talking about everything that you come into contact with in your daily life. So that could be social media. Are there people on your timeline or on your feed that are constantly making you feel negative, that you just read their posts and you're like, oh, delete them, block them, unfriend them, unfollow them, whatever you need to do to make your feed and your social media a high vibe and positive place to be, that's feeding into your daily positive energy, the better. Because there's enough going on in the world that we don't have control of. Things like our social media feed that we have full control of, we need to be cleansing those. We need to be very, very conscious of what we are, I guess, letting into our space, of what we are consuming on a daily basis. So go through your social feeds, go through your friends list, and unfriend and unfollow anybody that is not giving you that good energy, that is making you feel drained, that is making you compare yourself. Pause this podcast and do that now, because honestly, that is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. We spend so much time online, and having that positive feed, that, something that you go on and it feeds into how you're going to feel for the rest of the day. And you don't want that to be full of bullshit. TV, what are you watching? Is it making you feel good? Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be going to bed watching murder documentaries. I'm here for that. However, I do think there's a certain element of, we watch certain crime documentaries that they're real life, and it does make you feel negatively about the human race. So if you are watching stuff like that regularly, maybe just, follow it up with something positive and happy, or spend 20 minutes reading about stuff that's gone on in the news that's good. There is a really, really nice Instagram account called The Happy Broadcast. And yeah, that is, in fact, I think that the Hello Sunday podcast Instagram page follows, in fact, that account only follows really good either sober or self-development accounts, and the Happy Broadcast is one of the accounts, so go on there and find it. And they talk about things like how certain species have been saved this year, or certain plants have been regenerated, or things that are going on in science at the moment that are going to be, absolutely transformational in a positive way to the human race. So yeah, just look at what you're consuming, and that goes everything from books to online media. I mean, if you're reading the news online, please stop. You will find out what's going on in the news. You don't need to be actively seeking out those negative, sensationalist, the headlines these days are so clickbait. It's horrendous. I don't read any of that stuff anymore. And in fact, when I got my new laptop last year, the homepage was MSN News, and every time I clicked onto a new search, it came up with like the Russia-Ukraine invasion and all the humanitarian crises going on in Africa, and it was horrendous. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that this stuff is happening, but I have absolutely no control over the majority of it. So I didn't want it to pop up every time I wanted to just jump onto LinkedIn or search for something or research something for the podcast. So fill your time and fill your brain and your ears with positive content. Listen to happy self-development podcasts. Listen to comedy podcasts. I mean, the amount of comedy podcasts that I listen to in the week, but they're uplifting. They give you something to laugh at. Laughing is the best energy ever. And then if you are consuming really good, positive things, that is only going to have an implication and an effect on the people around you. Your energy affects everything. It affects your productivity. It affects your success. It affects your income. And it affects every single person that you come into contact with. So think about who you're impacting, who you are interacting with on a daily basis, and who you want your energy to be good for. And that will hopefully give you the push to do some of this stuff. Now, the last thing I want to say is, like I said at the beginning, this isn't about cutting people. Sometimes we do need to cut people out of our lives. And I get that, I get that that is sometimes the only option. But own your own negativity and be self-aware. Self-awareness is one of the greatest self-development tools that you can possess. Understanding where we can take radical responsibility for what we are creating in our lives, and that's a whole other podcast episode, but it's so important. And so be honest with yourself, are you using negative language? I did a whole podcast episode on this. I think it was, in fact, I'll try and link it in the show notes, but I can't remember what episode it was, but it's all about the language that we use. Try and think about the language that you're using on a daily basis. What does that sound like? What does that look like? And, hold yourself accountable, because we can't just expect other people to have a really positive impact on our lives if actually, when we look at it, maybe we're the ones sometimes that are being those drains. So just hold a mirror up a little bit and make sure that you're doing your bit, and look at how potentially you're impacting those around you. So I hope that this has been useful. I hope that you can take something from that, and just go away and look at how you can protect your energy. Your energy is one of those things that honestly impacts everything. And there's things that you can do. There's things that you will know intrinsically help lift your mood. For me, it's things like going on a walk, exercising, talking to one of my high vibe friends, researching a podcast episode, creating a podcast episode. There's so many things that I know put me into good energy when I'm feeling a little bit meh. So maybe set yourself like a menu of things that you know that bring you into a high vibe, and things that you can do when you recognize yourself getting into that negative energy, so that you don't become one of those kind of energy vampires or drains that we've been talking about. So I hope you have a fantastic week. I will see you all next Sunday for another episode. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at HelloSundayPod, or you can email us on hellosundaypod@outlook.com. Have a great week.